This is Game Changers. Hello. Hello, everybody. Vamp, vamp, vamp.
Right, Laraine, I did it to you, but you got us through the Steve Ferroni thing. Hi, Laraine.
Hello, Vicki. How are you, dear?
I'm so fine. Well, I'm not fine, but I'm so happy to be here
Tell
with
people
you.
what's going on with you and how the show must go on and you're a trooper.
The show must go on even though I got the new vaccine. Do you know, this is not a booster, this one. Do you know about this?
Well, yeah, I know it exists, and I know it's supposed to be like no more boosters. This is it. Yeah.
Is it true? Is it going to be no more boosters after this?
Well, I think what it is that there's no more boosters for this shot, which is for a new variant. If
right.
another variant comes along, then that's going to be another vaccine. So.
Well, I hadn't intended. I've been. Have you had reactions to the vaccines till now?
Just a sore arm. That's it.
Well, that's pretty good. I the first couple shots I had terrible, couldn't move my arm, got really sick. And then I started drinking Fiji water. Do you know about Fiji water?
Well, supposedly, I know of it.
Because of the electrolytes or whatever in Fiji water, supposedly if you drink a ton of Fiji water before the shot and then after, you don't have a reaction. So I've done that for the last 4 boosters and had no reaction at all. Been great.
Wow.
So I thought this was wonderful, and I'm going to do it for this one. And I did it. And Laraine, I have peeled myself off the couch, and because there was no way I was going to miss this. I'm so happy to have you here. I adore you.
I love you too. And anytime, honey.
And you didn't even know I had it. This is so hysterical to me because we see each other fairly often, and you didn't even know that I had a podcast, as it's called, which I love. I think it's hysterical. But you were in my living room a number of times.
Yes.
Back in the day.
Yeah, those were great. Those salons were just fantastic.
It's because of you, Laraine, actually, I believe, that I started charging money, because I used to not only not charge money, but I used to take money out of my pocket to do those. And then you walked around with a little bucket.
Yeah, well, I figured that because I saw that you had set out food, and the time it took and everything. And I thought, we got to remunerate her, So I got those slackers to chip in.
You were absolutely fantastic, and you got me started. And then it's not like I ever made money on the thing, but at least it wasn't costing me money.
Yeah, don't lose any.
God. Yeah, that wouldn't be good. But anyway, so since we're here and we're talking about this COVID thing, so how have you fared for the last 3.5 years? What were you doing? What were you in the midst of when the pandemic hit?
Well, frankly, this was just the government sanctioning the way I normally live. So I was thrilled, but also the animation thing could be done at home. So I worked all through the pandemic. Thank goodness, Netflix sent me equipment.
From the very beginning?
Yeah. Yeah, they were on it. So worked all through the pandemic, but I did get COVID once. And the first day I suspected it, I had these, sinus infection symptoms. And I thought, I just wonder if this is COVID. And I took a test. It was. I couldn't believe it. So I called the doctor and said, hey, I have these symptoms, but, it doesn't seem bad. I think I can handle it. They said, okay. Next day, I was just flattened. My ass was totally kicked. And they had told me of these 2 alternatives, the stuff that you could get that President Biden took. What is that stuff called?
No, wait, you're not talking about the stuff that Trump took. You're not talking about the horse stuff.
No, ivermectin. No,
ivermectin. Yeah, that was.
Yeah,
wasn't
but
that Trump
stuff.
All right. Okay. Yeah.
Biden took that he had, and it came back. Anyway, there were 2 options. One that you can get.
No, Paxlovid.
Paxlovid, right.
Right.
So that you could get for free. But then there was another thing that was a antibody infusion. And I chose that because
I remember this.
yeah, it supposedly did not have that bounce back. With the other stuff, you could get it again.
Right.
I swear to God, after this infusion, I was 75% better.
Right away?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
And Hannah was taking care of me, leaving food outside my door and stuff like that. But I was within like 3 days, I was fine.
Which version was this? This wasn't the first version of COVID. This was like Omicron. Was it Omicron or something?
I think it was the first version.
It was.
That long ago, yeah.
Oh, wow. And so did you lose your sense of taste or smell or any of that fun stuff?
No.
No. And do you know how you got it?
Yes, I do. A recording session. Yeah. Somebody had come in, one of the people, because we all recorded together, and they just casually mentioned that they had been around someone who had COVID, but I hadn't had it at that point, and I thought, maybe, who knows? We all think we're invincible.
So did that make you more or less, did you feel invincible after that? Okay, I've had it. I'm okay. I don't have to worry anymore.
Oh, no. I mean, from the very beginning, I was not one of those people that thought you had to wash your groceries. And I was not afraid to go to the market. As long as I wore gloves at that point, wearing gloves and a mask, I wasn't afraid. I figured that would protect me, and it did.
Mm-hmm.
And then I guess as time went on, we just kind of, it was at that point where people were saying, you don't have to wear the mask anymore. And that's when I caught it.
Oh. Okay, so now though, I saw you recently and we went to a restaurant, we sat outside, but when you went inside for a moment, you did wear a mask. So are you back to wearing a mask now?
Yeah, I went to a movie yesterday and wore a mask, yeah.
Yeah, okay. And so you travel for work.
Not really. I did take a vacation last year.
You went to Italy.
Went to Italy and London and England. And you know how long those flights are, but I wore a mask the whole time.
You didn't eat?
Yeah, I ate, but literally.
Yeah. And so now so having been through it and gotten to the other side, do you feel less crazy about, like, does it feel like, well, if I get it, I'll be okay? And
no, I really don't want to get it. I don't want to get more than once. My oldest child, Spike, is so informed. And they tell me all sorts of things about long COVID and what can happen if you have it just twice. And so
don't tell me that.
I'm not going to tell you.
Don't tell. So, and by the way, Mazel Tov on Spike. There's going to be a wedding.
Yes, there is. Yeah.
And you're happy about that?
Yeah, I love their boyfriend. He's the best. And I'm glad he'll be a part of the family. It's great.
Oh, wonderful. And so is the wedding on you? Is it like, are you going to be planning a wedding and all of that kind of stuff?
They are planning it themselves.
Nice.
Yeah.
Isn't that good when you have grown-up kids and they do that kind of stuff? That's a good thing. So you've had a lot of mazel with being a mom and having kids, but also you're very outspoken about the fact that, it's a tough gig too, right?
A very tough gig. And the whole Nepo baby thing really, it bothered them a lot. And in fact, in the very beginning of both of them starting to get work, they never talked about me because at that point, people didn't know I was their mom.
What?
I understood. I understood. It took a while. People didn't know that I was their mom for quite some time.
Really?
So, yeah. And again, I understand why.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't want to think, it's so belittling, this whole idea of nepotism, because that can only help you for so long. And it's like I had any power to get them work. I mean, I don't have that. But, if they did not have the goods, they wouldn't be continually getting work.
Absolutely.
they are.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm sure and I know you're a very proud mom and a lot to be proud of. And that's so exciting. It could easily go the other way. So did you not have, I mean, may you live in interesting times. I am fixed. For those of you who don't know, Laraine. Okay. Why did you choose Audible? Laraine did her book on Audible, only on Audible. Why did you make that decision, Laraine?
Well, because it's a vocal performance.
It is.
And their business model also is that it only be Audible, it not be in print. And they were the first people to ask me. So, and I really did feel that of all forms lent itself to my skills. So I was happy to do it that way. But there are a lot of people that have said, why isn't it in print? And, I don't have a hard copy to sign or anything like that. So that's kind of frustrating. But I am glad that I did it on tape.
It's fantastic. And also it leans totally into your skill set. I mean, you're a voice actress, one of your major skill sets. So it's wonderful to hear you tell your story. And I'm loving it. So I was telling Laraine before we went live that I had intended to skim it. I thought, okay, it's 9+ hours and I've got 2 days. I'm going to speed through. No, listening to every single word. It's just phenomenal. Your performance of it is phenomenal. The story is phenomenal. And what I love, I know you fairly well, and I know you in life to be honest and forthcoming, but I'm so taken by how willing you are to be vulnerable about your fears and your insecurities and all of those things that we don't expect from someone.
Well, I made a point of talking about that because quite often you read biographies and people are not willing to show that. And they tie their story up with a pink bow. And I was determined to, if anything, really talk about failure. I thought it was important to do that.
I wouldn't sum you up by using that word at all.
Well, there were intermittent times where there was failure.
Well, where you felt that way, I think, more than that was really the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Probably. But also your background is so interesting. Okay, so let's talk about it. What you feel comfortable to tell us. People are gonna get the Audible. And so now what do you do when people come to, when you celebrate the book? How do you do it?
Well, initially I did a book tour, but I did.
And how do you do that?
Well, you just go and you kind of talk about the book, and then you do a Q&A. And then the last part of my book tour I did with my dear friend Alan Zweibel. And so we did ours together. I talk about mine, he'd talk about his, and then he had Dave Barry interview both of us. And it was really fun. We had so much fun. And now we're doing like a speaking thing in Irvine. And we're hoping that will lead to more speaking engagements.
And so is there a way you can sell product at the end of this thing? Like, do you have a card that people can purchase? No. You need merch, Laraine. You need merch.
I don't know what's proprietary for them or not,
Wow. Okay. So without giving, we don't want to give your story away, but we certainly want to learn more about you while we're here. So I adore your sister, Tracy Newman, for those of you who don't know. And Tracy's a little bit older, mm-hmm. and had already, and yet you both were founding members of the Groundlings, correct?
Yeah, it was just like a confluence because she had all this success in New York. She had her own show on PBS, and she was like, MCs at all these clubs like the Bitter End and the Improv, and she knew all the comedians. I mean, I met Richard Pryor when I was 14 because he came to play at the Troubadour, if you can believe that. And for those who are watching that don't know the Troubadour, it is a small club. And but she said, hey, I want you to meet my friend who's playing at the Troubadour. And so she knew all these people. But then she was back in LA and she was in this improv workshop. And I was at Cal Arts I had gone there just because they offered me a spot because I was someone's audition partner. And I was in the acting program, and I just didn't like it. It wasn't for me. I mean, I did join their improv group, which was 6 people, 3 women and 3 guys. And one of the guys was Paul Rubens. So that's how I
I'm
met him.
so sorry for your loss.
Yeah, it's
Wow, you go back a really long way.
Yeah, it was 1973.
Wow.
Yeah. So Tracy kept telling me about this improv workshop she was a part of. And I just had it with this theater program. So I left and I joined the workshop. And it was unbelievable because they had, people like Pat Morita and Jack Sue and Tim Matheson and Valerie Curtin. And we were all there just to increase our skills. Because I had studied improv when I was 15. So this was just a continuation for me.
So what brought you to that? I know that you used to do plays on your street or something, and there was right. So how did this passion come from, Tracy? Where did this passion come from?
I don't know.
Your father was
no. Neither of my folks were in the entertainment business. My dad was a quilt manufacturer, and ultimately my mother was an architect, self-taught. Very talented. Yeah, very talented. And but I played by myself a lot, and my imagination was just very, rich. And I lived in a fantasy world a lot when I was very young, and it just kind of turned into performance. But what it leaned towards was me writing my own material all along. Like even at camp when I was 9, I was writing my own stuff. And so, I'd get laughs and it was like, oh my God, this is it.
So what did that look like at 9? Like what did you write when you were 9?
Oh, I wrote and I made my own props, by the way. You see, there was a long time ago, you wanted to connect a phone call, an operator to have a switchboard and stick a connecting tube into it. And so I had the switchboard, with the strings attached to Q-tips and holes. And I played this operator getting confused, something that I'm sure has been done before, but yeah, and it was good. And then I went to another camp and I played the guitar, and there'd been like a baseball game that day, and I was shouting my guts out, cheering. And when I started to sing, my voice cracked, and it got a big laugh. I didn't intend for that, but once that happened, it was like, oh, how can I get more of that? So it kind of, laughs were really important in our house anyway. So, yeah, humor. My dad was a funny guy. My mother was inadvertently funny.
Inadvertently, what does that mean?
Well, unintentionally, she would.
Yeah.
Things like, sorry.
I know what the word means. I just mean I'm going to mean with
give
her.
me an example. I will give you an example.
Excellent.
She said, to nobody in particular. Well, actually to my dad, she said, when one of us dies, I'm getting a Jaguar. So, it was, she didn't mean it that way, but
yeah.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering why you were alone a lot. You have a twin brother and you have other siblings.
Yes.
So why alone a lot?
I listened to the book.
Well, I am. I'm asking for the sake of our audience.
It's complicated to get into it. My brother and I were very close till we were 4 years old, and then we kind of diverged. And also, my older siblings were out of the house. Even though Tracy still lived at home, she was 16.
Right.
So she was like with her high school friends. So I was kind of by myself, and I kind of liked it that way, because I could live in my world.
And so this world you created, so were you shy other than when you were in your world?
I was an introvert that was a show off.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would see other people do stuff and I would think, I can do better than that. But I wouldn't dare say that out loud, and I wouldn't assert myself unless I was asked, you know.
You had to be invited to the party. Okay.
Yeah, like a
So
vampire.
so you weren't the class clown. You weren't.
Well, I was actually. I was.
You
Yeah.
were.
Mhm.
Okay. So were you did you get in trouble? Were you like a troublemaker? Yes.
Well, I mean, I was pretty much a good kid. You know, I wasn't like ditching school or smoking or, you know, having sex or anything like that. And I wasn't doing drugs until later. So, but yeah, I was a pretty well behaved kid, but I remember a couple of visits to the principal's office.
Mhm. And so how with this age gap between you and Tracy, how did you both end up as founding members of the Groundlings? How did this come together?
Well, that's what I mean by it really being an odd confluence, because, you know, she was doing this thing
Mhm.
and I was doing that thing over in Irvine, not Irvine, it's Newhall.
Mhm.
And I kept complaining to her about Cal Arts, and she said, join this company that it's not even a company, it's a workshop. Join this, you know? So I did. It's what she happened to be doing at the time and what I needed to be doing at the time.
And so how long were you in the Groundlings before Lauren came to call?
Um, well, you know, we actually started in 72, and I went there in 73. And so I would say 2 years. And first he came with Lily Tomlin and I worked for him on one of her specials. And then he came back and then hired me for SNL.
And so how was you were very young. How
I was 23.
23.
Yeah.
And what was there
Young 23.
was there support? Was there jealousy? I mean, how was it in the company that this was happening for you?
You know, that was a very supportive company. We all knew each other. We all loved each other. And nobody knew what this show was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there were people that were asked that turned it down because they thought it was just another like 13 weeks of nonsense, you know, and they'd already been through that quite a bit. So I liked the idea of doing it. I didn't know it would be in New York.
Oh, but you
did not want to do. But, you know, I was only going to be for 13 weeks with a 5-year option. And
which you didn't think that.
But no.
Mm-hmm.
No.
And so when you loaded up the car and moved to New York instead of Beverly, you had a misfortune on your way to New York, did you not?
Well, when we arrived, actually,
when you arrived,
we stayed in the village. Me and my boyfriend Arthur stayed in the village for 3 days, and then we moved to Midtown, stayed in a hotel one night. And now, mind you, all of my costumes and all of my written material from the Groundlings were in the car, and the car was stolen. But I mean, all my clothes, everything, my record collection, that killed me. And so I was kind of hobbled a bit, because at one point Lauren asked me to put on like a show for the writers, because he was the only one who really knew what I did. And it was a reasonable request, but I had such stage fright. I mean, that's why, had I known Lauren was in the audience or Lily was in the audience, I think my life would have been very different, you know. But since I didn't, what happened happened. But now this was a situation where these were people I didn't know, and I had to mount a show for them. And, you know, I didn't remember verbatim these character monologues that I had crafted over time, but hadn't done them for 3 months, you know, and I had to like create the, you know, connective tissue to each beat. And it wasn't that good. And of course, I was also so nervous and my mouth was so dry that my lips were sticking to my teeth. And I was watching myself from a corner up in the ceiling. And it was awful.
Well, it couldn't have been too awful. You got through it somehow.
Yeah, I did. And I found a way to make my characters seen.
And so how many of the characters that you did in the Groundlings were you able to?
3. The Swedish cookie lady, this character named Alice, and the Valley Girl.
The Valley Girl, the first Valley Girl. Can you tell that story about the Valley Girl and how she almost was your undoing? It's a great story.
I'm not sure.
When you had a word that you were going to say, and it was going to.
Okay. Well, when I heard that they were going to do the 40th anniversary of SNL, I thought, God, it would be great to do Sherry, the Valley Girl, in the Californians, because I had always wanted to be in that sketch anyway, and this was my chance, So I mentioned it to Lorne, thinking nothing would happen. And then Fred Armisen called me, and then he came over. We wrote for 3 days in my kitchen. Nothing of what we wrote was in the sketch.
Wow.
But I did break down the mechanics of the dialect, a glottal L, which is a swallowed L, like, you think Tom Brokaw. And so words like really and probably would be really and probably. And ing endings would be EEN. So I was thinking, I was going, and contractions wouldn't, shouldn't, couldn't would be wouldn't, shouldn't, couldn't. And we thought Fred wrote this little monologue in the sketch for me to say cunt 3 times. And at the last minute, I thought, this could ruin this show if I did. So I kind of chickened out.
Well, but you also didn't chicken out the first time you did the character.
Okay.
Right? Yeah.
I had there was in a sketch with Sherry, and I said she would say pissed off. And we were told by the censor, you cannot say pissed off. So I don't want to drop dime on Lorne, but here it goes, he said, well, don't say it in dress, but say it on the air. And I was like, okay, because I wanted to. So when I did, I remember the censor's name was Hermione Traviesis. And I had to personally apologize to him, because, and I had to make it clear that it was my choice, because if it wasn't and it was involuntary, then they couldn't trust me. Like a loose cannon. So I had to make it very clear it was a deliberate choice. He said, we're going to have to go on a 7-second delay, which means you're technically not live. I said, you don't need to do that. I did it on purpose. I am so sorry. I will never do it again.
And you proved trustworthy. You didn't do it again.
I did not do it again.
You did not do it again.
And I didn't say cunt on TV.
You didn't say cunt on TV. Well, you did now, but it's only internet TV. Okay, so you go to New York and you're not expecting to have anything more than 13 weeks. And when do you realize that that's not the way it's going? Do you know right away? Okay, wow. Do you know as soon as you guys go live that this is a thing? When do you realize that?
I would say like maybe 5 or 6 shows in, Gilda and I would be walking down the street and people would call out lines that we said the night before. And that's when we thought, oh my goodness, people are watching us, because, we were in a really dead spot. It was in place of Johnny Carson reruns. We just wanted to have something, and also it was a dead time slot. So it was almost like they didn't care what we did, to a limit, but then we realized people were really watching us, and then people were writing about us. And so definitely in the first season, we knew that it was catching on. you
And
know.
so how was the so you and Gilda, so you bonded immediately from what I understand. Um and how was it with the rest of the cast for you?
Well, I loved everybody, you know. I'm closer to Garrett now than I ever was. We're really good friends now. Not so much then, but he was so much older than me, and I could not relate to him. But everybody else, you know, we were all, you know, I think because improv is such a cooperative art form, we were all there, you know, with the habit to support one another. And we did. You know, there were no, you would think there were cliques with the girls. There were no cliques. You know, it was very cooperative.
What about Chevy?
Well, see, I can't speak for the boys' experience. You know, I mean,
No, but you with the girls with Chevy.
he was very sweet to us,
Mhm.
you know, and he and I became quite good friends for a while, even after the show.
Was there a weird dynamic when he kind of became a breakout
Oh,
star?
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
Of course, it left room for Bill Murray to come in and also John to, you know,
Take
shine.
off.
Yeah.
Mhm. And so were you aware back then? I don't know at what point you started taking substances, but was it clear that there was a lot of that going on, and that was that part of the environment?
Yes. I mean, you know, in the 70s, cocaine was just thought of in a very whimsical way. But I had already come there with the coke habit. You know,
Mhm.
I had been turned on to coke at Sawyer Business College by my calculator teacher. So, you know, but it was not always available. But when I was in SNL, it was very available. So that changed. And of course, the difficulties of the show, that would be how I would like drown my sorrows. I didn't drink, you know, so that was really how I dealt with the difficulty, the emotional strain of doing the show. And it's only years later that I realized that everybody was having problems, you know, in their own way.
So, so what was it like week after week? How much would you have to battle to get something on the air? And did you battle, or did you just take what was given to you? Did you get in there and fight for what was yours?
It was half and half, you know. I think towards the end, I just kind of would do what they wrote for me, but quite often they wrote great characters for me, you know, which was very, you know, such a vote of confidence. I really liked that. It meant a lot to me. But also I realized that because of my drug use, I wasn't dependable. And
How
I didn't,
so?
well, I just, you know, sometimes in read through, I didn't get that you really had to sell the sketch and read through. I didn't get it. I didn't know. It seems obvious, but at the time, you know, I just was so myopic and inexperienced that I didn't know to do that. You know, I didn't know to, I tried to align myself with certain writers, but I just didn't know how to do it. And so I wasn't very successful at it, even though I learned years later that Michael O'Donoghue really liked working with me and Belushi. I had no idea. So more will be revealed, as they say.
Mhm. And like Alan and Gilda kind
Great,
of.
great team. Yes.
Mhm. And did you write stuff for yourself? Would you go in and pitch?
Um, well, you know, the monologue I did in Godfather Group Therapy as Sugar,
Yeah.
that was from the Groundlings,
Uh-huh.
that whole thing. Um, and you know what, I didn't really write anything. I would try and sit in on writing sessions, and if they did include a character of mine, I might contribute a line or two. But again, I didn't know to write anything, and I wasn't a sketch writer. I was a monologue writer.
Mm.
So I knew nothing about writing sketch.
Did you learn while you were there?
No, I didn't, Vicki. I did not.
So, okay, so now how I assume that, and I know I listened to your book, and I know just from what I've heard before that things changed between the dress rehearsal and the live show, right? So were you a quick study? Did you get it right away? Were you reading teleprompters? Were you
I was reading cue cards. A
you
lot
were
of us,
reading
because the thing is that between dress and air, internal cuts in a sketch would happen. So what you might have been saying before, you're not saying anymore, or you're saying only part of it. So, I really wish I had studied more, but if it was a character that I knew, the baby mogul was really a character I brought in. That became the child psychologist, and those were characters I created there. I lost my train of thought, Vicki.
I was asking you about reading, you was talking about reading cue cards and the lines changing.
Yeah, I got very good at reading cue cards and not looking like I was.
Which not everyone has been that successful in subsequent years, but yeah, yes, you were great at it.
Everybody gets to it at some point.
And so you had a pretty exciting thing happen. I think it was during the first season when you knew you had arrived, when a certain hero called you by your name.
Oh, yeah. I think that might have been the second or third year, actually.
Oh, okay.
I was coming home from a photo session with Francesco Scavulo. And I was in the lobby of 30 Rock. And in my peripheral vision, I see these two people, and they come into focus, and it's John and Yoko. And as they walk past me, John goes, "Hi, Laraine." And it was like, not hi, Laraine. I was literally like Lou Costello, and yeah, I was wow. And when I went into the elevator to go up to 17, I was thinking, John said hi to me in the hall, but I said that, it was like, God, that kind of sounds high school, so I didn't say it.
But that must have happened to you a lot in those years of meeting heroes who were fans of yours now.
Yeah, that was pretty exciting.
And still, I'm sure to this day, that has to be thrilling.
It's thrilling, and it takes me by surprise, and it's always wonderful.
So, I mean, like everybody, musical guests, I mean, everybody did the show, everybody guest hosted. I'm guessing your comedy heroes, your music, and you are so into music, and Saturday Night Live was so cutting edge with music. Is there anybody else that took your breath away?
Well, growing up in part-time in Beverly Hills, you'd see movie stars all the time, literally. So it wasn't so much movie stars that took my breath away. It was musicians. And meeting David Bowie was, that was the one that really, man.
And what was he? I've talked to Candy about this, having done the film with him. What was he like with you guys? Because he seemed so ethereal and so otherworldly. What was he like?
Well, the first time he came on, I have a friend, Joey Arias, who is a very famous drag queen now, but he's also an original groundling. So he was also in New York. He was working at Fiorucci, but he was also in a scene. He has original Basquiat and, Keith Haring stuff, because he knew all these people in the beginning. And I did not know that Joey and Klaus Nomi were Bowie's backup singers. And I had promised to get Joey tickets at one point, and then I forgot. And so I was apologizing profusely. And then the day of dress rehearsal, he was there. I thought, I'm going to get in trouble. What are you doing here? And at that point, he stepped up on stage with Bowie. And then when they came off stage, he had told Bowie about forgetting to get the tickets. And Bowie came up, and I don't remember any of this. This is what Joey told me, that Bowie came up in back of me and hugged me. He said, I had to give him a job. You didn't give him the tickets or something like that, you know. And then another time when Bowie was on, my like really good friend from middle school, Tony Sales, had a band.
I know Tony.
Yeah, Tin Machine, but we were really close friends in middle school. And so they were on the show. It just, there's so much.
Did you know Soupy?
No, I did not. I knew his mother and his brother Hunt. Yeah.
So, so Tin Machine did Saturday Night Live when you were.
Well, they did it backing up Bowie.
Right. Okay, so, and then you also, the Stones were on when you were there, weren't?
Yes.
So how surreal was that?
That was utter debauchery. They had the doctor who had pharmaceutical cocaine. And oh my God, you know, so we were staying up very late all the time. These guys, you know, they were so nice though. I mean, there was a party, and, you know, one of the first records I ever bought was Not Fade Away. And I didn't even know it was a cover because Buddy Holly was before my time.
Right.
And there's like a musical break in that always just killed me. I loved it. And so I said it was Mick and Keith standing together. And I said, this is probably a stupid question. And they said, don't put yourself down. There were no stupid questions. You know? So I thought that was so sweet, you know?
Wow. And were the parties as wild as we all imagined them to be? Were they as fun and as crazy as?
Well, the after party was at a restaurant all the time. And we were starving after the show, starving. And to try and get any food at these parties was so arduous because it was like, oh, there's Robert De Niro. Oh, look, there's Brian De Palma. Wait, that's Paul Schrader, you know. So it was just, you know, people table hopping. So that interfered with your food order. It was just, you know, at some point, some of us started to go to Danny and John's bar, the Blues Bar, which was an absolute toilet. And literally, you know, the scene in Train Spotting, the filthiest toilet in Scotland, their toilet was worse.
Oh,
and it was almost like it was almost sinking into, you know, how Wall Street is kind of sinking.
Yeah.
It was just like the floor was just a little tilted with water.
Where was the bar?
I don't remember.
Wow. Oh my God.
But, you know, there were amazing people would come in and play and sing at the bar, and there was no food there either, but, you know.
So was eating, did you ever not eat on purpose? I mean, you were all so thin. There was no eating.
Listen to me closely.
Mm-hmm.
I have never had an eating disorder. I have never been bulimic. I have never been anorexic. I was a thin person that had a Coke habit. That's it, you know. No booze, you know, none of that stuff, just the Coke. I was a specialist.
And and did that ever get in your way?
What,
in the work? Did the Coke ever get in your way of the work?
I never worked high. Yeah. I knew that it would affect my timing and everything, my presence. So I never worked high.
So,
except for one time, and it wasn't Coke, it was heroin. So
how fun.
But I swear to God, my mom called me after that show, and she never called me after any show. Never. And she called me and she said, you just seem so mature.
Wow.
Yeah. I don't know.
Okay, heroin, a Jewish girl who did heroin.
Well, it didn't last. It didn't last for me because I could not put up with the nausea because I'm very afraid of throwing up. It's just like very afraid. And of course, nausea and constipation. I had said this to Alan Zweibel. He was so quick. And I was going to say, as a Jew, it was intolerable. But before I could say intolerable, he said redundant.
Yeah. So, Laraine, why you got sober very young? Why?
5 is not that young.
Well,
I held out a long time, but
comparatively.
yeah,
What did you have a bottom?
I had a moment of clarity because, I didn't lose everything, but I was about to lose the last thing that kept me in the world, which was my work. I had a terrible audition, and all of my auditions are terrible. I was so bad at it. I was so terrified. And my agent, Michael Black, called me afterwards and he said, "So how did it go?" And I said, "Well, I was terrible." He said, "Good. I'm glad you're aware of that because, honey, I want to tell you, they called me and wanted to know what was wrong with you." And so I realized that my world, the last door to the world, was going to close. And that's when I checked myself into rehab.
Okay. When Saturday Night Live, so you had a 5-year contract.
Mm-hmm.
You're in the last year of your 5-year contract. You're world famous. Life is pretty good. You've got a Coke.
I don't know that Saturday Night Live was everywhere but the United States at that time. Now it is, but not then.
Okay, you're not world famous. You're United States famous.
Yes, exactly.
What are you and you've got this Coke habit, but at the time you're controlling it because you're able to do your gig and it's wildly successful. Wait, before we finish with Saturday Night Live, can you talk a little bit about what it was like being Laraine Newman in that group? And because I heard you speak really candidly, openly about your feelings about yourself during that period. And there was some insecurity there. Yes?
Yeah, because I was, the least used performer on the show. And
is that so?
I think so, yeah. Although when I had to research the book and look at some of the sketches that I totally forgot that I'd done, I realized that I was in a lot more sketches than I thought I was. But still, that wasn't how I saw it at the time. And so from my perspective, yes, Gilda was a star and John and Billy were stars, and Chevy, and even Jane. But whenever people would talk about the cast, they would leave off me and Garrett.
Ooh.
That happened for a long time. And it would absolutely kill me, Obviously, it doesn't happen anymore, but for a long time it did. The stars of Saturday Night Live, and they say the cast, and they named everybody but me and Garrett. And that was really hard on a very immature, troubled person, So I did not see myself as famous or anything like that.
And so when it ended, did you have a plan?
I've never had a plan.
Never had. Although you were like the first woman in the cast to make a movie, American Hot Wax, right?
Yeah, I made 2 movies, actually. I made Stardust Memories during the show as well.
And so what was that like to work with Woody?
He was great. It's really, he was great. Tolerant, very flattering.
This is a question that has nothing to do with Laraine Newman, actress. I'm just curious. Do you have an opinion about all this stuff that Woody's gone through? And
nothing that I would be willing to talk about here.
Okay, we'll talk about it over lunch. Okay, so So American Hot Wax, in listening to your book, you said you didn't even know who Carole King was when you got that role.
Yeah. I had a particular genre of music that I loved, which was blues and R&B, not knowing, of course, that a lot of the R&B songs I liked, she wrote.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I didn't have any Barbara Streisand records, or, it was like either Etta James or Linda Ronstadt, although I loved Joni Mitchell, but it was basically, blues and R&B artists. So I did not know who Carole King was.
Wow.
I know. I mean, people, when Lorne pitched the show to me, he said it's a cross between 60 Minutes and Monty Python. I didn't know who Monty Python was because they weren't on in LA.
Really?
No, they weren't on. They were on in 75 after I left.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't on before that. So I did not know.
So, okay, so Saturday Night Live ends. You've got a drug thing. What happens? Do you come back to LA right away? I assume you did.
Yeah. Yeah. I wanted to come home so
Mhm.
badly.
Mhm.
And, it's funny because my agency kept me working. The only 2 years I didn't work from after SNL till now were the years my kids were born. It wasn't great stuff. Some of it was, but, a lot of it was just forgettable stuff, but I always worked. This was just, there was just a lot of anguish within me about so many things, some imagined, some real.
Is that different now?
Oh, yes. Very different. Thank the Lord.
How did you segue into voice acting?
I had a manager, Lori Gilbert, and I was really frustrated with my difficulty with auditioning. And she said, "What about voiceover?" She set me up to meet Arlene Thornton, who was my first voiceover agent. And I auditioned for 2 years, and I would get guest spots here and there, but no series. And then I studied with this guy named Charlie Adler. And after that, I never stopped working.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was there a thing that turned the light on, do you think? Or was it a lot of things?
From his teaching, you mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it is an absolutely different form. You are using your body, but only to affect your voice. And so it is simply voice acting. Your facial expressions can affect your voice, but they're not important for the performance. Insofar as you want to use it to affect your voice, but otherwise it's not important. So, like on the Box Trolls, I played a stout woman and I played a thin woman. And the stout woman, I had to give her girth in her voice to make her sound heavy, and vice versa. And it was just, I took to it right away. It was really what I feel my skill sets led me to. I could do dialects, I could do all ages of people, I could do, sound like a teenage boy. These are things that I didn't even know I could do until I studied with Charlie. He brought so much out of me.
Mm. What was it like going back for the Saturday Night Live anniversary? Did you feel at home? Did you feel like the mama? How did that feel?
Well, I didn't feel at home because it had changed so much.
Mm.
The actual setup and layout of the studio. But, I've encountered subsequent casts because of doing Sketchfest, San Francisco Sketchfest. I've met, a lot of subsequent cast members and become friends with some of them. So in seeing them there, it was there was a continuity, but it was also, everybody was just so happy, genuinely happy to see one another. As that was my experience of it. We were just glad to be alive. Yeah.
So
Cool.
Laraine, I know you do celebrity autobiography and have for quite some time. Can you tell everybody, I've been there, I've seen you do it. Can you describe a little bit about what that is?
Well, this is a show that was created by Eugene Pack and Dale Rayfell. And basically what they did was they edited celebrity autobiographies and they had people read from these autobiographies. The last bit that they do is an amalgam of Elizabeth Taylor's autobiography, Debbie Reynolds' autobiography, and I'm thinking, oh, Eddie Fisher. Mm-hmm. And so they cobbled together this whole story from everybody's perspective, and it's just terrific. It's so much fun.
And I don't remember who you read when I was there. Who are you reading these days?
These days I'm reading Celine Dion.
Oh, how lovely.
Yeah. And I think it depends, like Pamela Anderson and Suzanne Summers, the poetry of Suzanne Summers.
The poetry of Suzanne Summers. Bruce Valanche did one in my living room. He did Star Jones, I believe, in my living room. It was quite lovely. It was pretty
He's
wonderful.
done the show. I toured with him. We played Arizona.
So, and is this great? I would imagine this is great fun because it's a bunch of you doing it at the same time.
Yeah.
Lainey comes with my mother to my house a lot, and I know Lainey's done it. Lainey's done it a bunch of times.
Great.
So what's coming up for you? I know you're doing a talk with Alan Zweibel. Where are you guys going to be and when?
Okay.
Give us the dates.
Just look that up.
By the way, people are buying your CD through Amazon right now.
They are. Thank you guys. Thank you so much.
Yes, it's May You Live in Interesting Times. I did not buy the CD. I bought the audio version. I'm listening to the audio.
To the best of my knowledge, there's no CD.
There is a CD. You can buy the CD, but there was delay. That's why I didn't buy it. You had to wait like 8 days to get the CD.
Oh, so Amazon does.
Audible will sell you a CD that they'll send you.
I mean, Audible, yes.
But Amazon, I was able to get the download. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
This is going to be on November 11th at the beautiful Irvine Barclay.
Okay.
Yes, at 8 p.m.
And I love Alan so much. You two together are going to be magnificent.
It's the best. I never would have imagined that we would become such good friends.
I was going to say, so what were you guys like back then? Because you were both on the show.
We had I would do voices that he liked. It would make him laugh, but in passing, but now we're really good friends, and it's such a gift.
Who was writing mostly for you? You mentioned Michael O'Donoghue. Who was writing mostly for you back then?
Rosie Schuster, Tom Schiller, O'Donoghue, sometimes Al Franken, and Max Pross and Tom Gamble.
And do you have relationships with them today?
I see them. I went to a party for Jim Downey just the other day, and I saw Max there. And it's just, it's a family. It's like no time has passed. I love Jim Downey so much. And it was so great to see him.
Can you talk about the party you had at your house that Gilda came to?
Sure. It was my 36th birthday. And we just decided to have, Layla Nabulsi, my friend Layla, was staying at my house. And, I'm like such a introvert, and she's always like holly go lightly getting me to do stuff. And so we word of mouth, and the people that started coming through the door. I mean, we bought fixings for sandwiches. We put it all on a table in the dining room, pushed it to the side, got all these drinks. And it was like Sam Kinison, Michael Palin, Peter Cook, Steve Martin, oh my God, Billy and Danny, Bell, I don't know if Bell was there. His wife Robin was there, Gilda. I mean, so many people. It was amazing. I mean, that's such a catch-all word and it's used so much, but it was really amazing. And Layla and Angelica Houston got me a dog.
Oh,
Yes, they got me a miniature dachshund.
did you want a dog?
When I when my friend Lynn Scott with her husband Tom, I saw them carrying a wicker basket with a gingham, like napkin over it. And then this little nose poked its way out. And I was like, oh no, you didn't get my dog. And then I see the little nose. I was like, if I'd been lactating, my shirt would have been drenched.
How long did you have the dog?
Oh my gosh, 8 years, I think.
Mm.
Yeah.
And so that was the last public appearance that Gilda made with everybody there?
With all of us together, yeah. And Dan and Billy just hoisted her on their shoulders because she was saying, I'm going to leave now. I was like, oh no, hoisted her, and we're carrying her around upstairs and downstairs and all through the house. And she's laughing, and Billy's saying, say your goodbyes now. She's a goner.
Wow.
Because at that point she was in remission.
Well, Laraine, you have lived in interesting times, huh?
Ending on that. Oh God.
No, we know. All right, so let's not end on that. I have one more question. You're a foodie. Where did this come? Was your mother a good cook? Where did the foodie stuff come from?
Mother was a great cook. I only wish that I had let her teach me while she was alive, because I was like, I'm not interested. But I became interested afterwards. And I think it's like an art form, and it's very, very soothing. And I really don't know where it started, but yeah,
do you do that? Do you cook for yourself?
Yeah, all the time.
I love that. Well, Laraine, I love you, and I'm so happy to have spent this time with you, and thank you for doing it. And I've completely forgotten that I had a shot and I felt like crap.
Well,
so
good.
Thank you.
To distract you.
And I look forward to seeing you soon in the real world. And everybody, so from Audible, you can get the CD, or you can download from Amazon. May you live in interesting times. Yeah. And Audible, I think you only does a CD. Amazon, you get the download. This is what I found today.
Okay.
I don't know. This is what I found. I don't know. Anyway, get it, because it's wonderful. And then you get Laraine reading to you for 9 hours, which is fantastic. Thanks so much, Laraine. I love you. I will see you soon.